Hello and welcome to the Minimum Competence episode for Wednesday, October 9th, 2024. I'm your host for today, Andrew Leahy, a tax and technology attorney from New Jersey. On today's episode, we cover the potential breakup of Google, Richard Glossip's death row appeal, and the Supreme Court's likely support for Biden's regulation on ghost guns. Let's remember, there's nothing like playoff baseball. It's like the entire season condensed into every moment. And read today's legal news. On this day in legal history, October 9th, 1967, Ernesto Che Guevara, a prominent figure in revolutionary movements across Latin America, was executed by Bolivian forces after being captured during a failed guerrilla campaign. Guevara was a key leader in the Cuban Revolution and sought to spread Marxist insurgencies throughout Latin America, hoping to ignite similar revolutions. His execution without a trial, carried out with the assistance of the CIA, became a controversial event, raising questions about the illegal treatment of non-state actors under international law. Che Guevara's death highlighted the evolving legal frameworks for dealing with insurgencies, guerrilla warfare, and the rights of captured combatants. At the time, international law, including the Geneva Conventions, offered limited protections to guerrilla fighters whose status as non-traditional combatants fell outside the established norms for prisoners of war. The Bolivian government's decision to execute Guevara without due process sparked widespread condemnation and intensified debates on the legality of such actions. The legacy of Che Guevara's execution extended far beyond his death, as it became a symbol of the broader struggles for political justice, human rights, and the use of state power to suppress insurgencies. His killing underscored the need for clearer international legal standards governing the treatment of insurgents, contributing to later discussions on how to apply humanitarian law to non-state actors and revolutionaries. The U.S. government may seek to force Google to break up parts of its business, such as its Chrome browser and Android operating system, to address what it argues is an illegal monopoly in online search. A judge found in August that Google's dominance, processing 90% of U.S. searches, violates antitrust laws. The Justice Department's proposed remedies aim to end Google's control over search distribution and prevent its dominance from expanding into artificial intelligence or AI. One suggestion is to stop Google from making billion-dollar payments to device manufacturers like Apple to have its search engine pre-installed as the default. Google plans to appeal, calling the proposals radical and arguing that users choose its search engine for its quality. The company also claims it faces competition from platforms like Amazon. Additionally, a recent court ruling requires Google to allow more competition in its App Store. The Justice Department's more detailed proposal will be submitted in November, and Google can respond by December. The antitrust ruling against Google could have significant consequences for smaller companies like Mozilla, which heavily relies on Google's payment to make its Firefox browser financially viable. If Google is forced to stop paying for default search positions, Mozilla could lose a substantial portion of its revenue, more than $500 million annually, putting its future in jeopardy. This would limit Mozilla's ability to compete with larger players like Apple and Microsoft, and could further consolidate market power in the hands of big tech. The U.S. Supreme Court will hear arguments in the case of an Oklahoma death row inmate named Richard Glossip, who is seeking to have his conviction overturned for a 1997 murder for hire. Glossip, now 61, was convicted of paying Justin Sneed to kill Barry Van Treese, the owner of the motel where Glossip worked. Sneed, who confessed to the murder, testified against Glossip in exchange for avoiding the death penalty. Glossip admits to helping cover up the crime, but denies commissioning the murder. Newly uncovered evidence suggests that prosecutors withheld information that could have helped Glossip's defense. Oklahoma's Attorney General, Gettner Drummond, now supports Glossip's appeal, acknowledging flaws in the case, though he still believes Glossip should face some punishment. Due to the Attorney General's stance, the Supreme Court appointed an outside lawyer to defend the conviction. The justices are expected to rule by June of 2025. The U.S. Supreme Court is signaling support for President Biden's regulation of ghost guns or built-at-home firearm kits by likely allowing the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, or the ATF, to regulate these kits as firearms. The rule, introduced in 2022, would require serial numbers, background checks, and record-keeping for gun kits, treating them like fully assembled guns. Challengers, including gun rights advocates, argue that the rule expands beyond the authority granted by the 1968 Gun Control Act. However, several justices, including Chief Justice Roberts and Justice Barrett, expressed skepticism about the challengers' claims, noting how easily kits can be turned into functioning firearms. The case echoes past legal battles over firearms regulations, such as the one involving bump stocks, and centers on the scope of the ATF's power. And with that, and as always, I thank you so much for listening to Minimum Competence, your daily news podcast for lawyers. If you're looking for more than Minimum Competence, links to further reading on all the topics touched on today are in the show notes. And reviews go a long way towards helping new listeners to find our show. If you have a moment, leave a rating or review on your podcast player. We'd sure appreciate it. And if you know someone that might be interested in a story we cover, consider sending them the episode. But remember, nothing here should be construed as legal advice, because it is certainly not that. Minimum Competence is available at minimumcomp.com and wherever it is you get your finely crafted podcasts. If you haven't checked out the website in a while, give it a look. There are complete transcripts and resources for each episode and its corresponding segments, as well as an opportunity to receive new episodes in email, newsletter, form. We'll see you back here tomorrow, and until then, remember, the best part of baseball is that the postseason lets us all believe in magic for a little while longer.